Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are Team Radha Bangla, and I'm Samiksha, the first speaker from this team. We have Apeksha, the second speaker, and Abhigya is the third speaker from our team. The House believes that dependency on remittance is harmful for the national economy. I would first like to define the key terms of our topic. Dependency basically means reliance. Remittance is the money sent home by the people of a country who are working overseas, that is abroad. And the national economy refers to the economy of the nation on the whole, which involves the overall economic conditions of any nation. The three arguments that this House believes in are as follows. First, dependency on remittance brings about waste of resources. Second, remittance and how this causes the economy to become a puppet. And third is the stagnation of economy brought about by the dependency on remittance and the global shock effects. I would now like to expand on our first argument, which was based on waste of resources. How does remittance actually have a harmful impact on the national economy and the waste of resources? And how this, in the long run, affects the national economy in an adverse way? Well, we do not have proper labor in Nepal right now because we're facing labor shortages. They are going abroad, they are sending in remittance, but how is this remittance being utilized? Is it helping the national economy? Well, the House believes that it is not, because this money is not being utilized in the productive sector. Most of the remittance that is sent is used in household purposes, and some of the living standard of the people living in villages might have risen. Yes, the House is aware of that fact, but we need to have a broader perspective at this. The wives of the people who send in remittance now have mobile phones. The families, they have access to television. But what about the productive base of the economy? They are deviating from working on our agricultural land. So is remittance doing good for this nation? Will depending on remittance in the long run do good for an agricultural economy like ours? Definitely not. Also, most of the money that comes in through remittance is not being utilized properly, and it is mostly spent on buying houses and lands. This is one of the major reasons why Nepal faced real estate boom, and now it is in the verge of collapsing, the market. Another problem which the House would like to highlight is the liquidity management problems, which is brought about by remittance. We cannot predict in which year how much remittance is going to come in, and in which year how much will be the inflow. So this brings about a lot of problems in the balance of payment, and it can lead to deficits a lot. There will be imbalance in the balance of payment, sometimes surpluses and sometimes deficits, and the banking system will be volatile, which brings instability in the economy, because in some cases we will face a proper inflow of remittance, whereas in some time we may not. And this is one of the major reasons that the House would like to highlight. It's not possible for the central bank to implement different kinds of policies and to change its policies as soon as possible. So there's a time lag when there is implementation of policies. And this is one of the major reason that the House would like to highlight. The impacts would be, if there is a surplus, then it might lead to exchange rate fluctuations. If the exchange rate appreciates, then our exports become uncompetitive. And when this happens, again, our economy is the one that suffers. So we are not supposed to be, short-sighted. We have to be we have to be visionary, we have to have a long-run vision, and in this case, for Nepal, remittance, depending on remittance, will not do any good. We need to find other sources through which we can sustain this economy, because sustainable economy in any country does not depend on remittance. Sustainable economy does not come through remittance, but through improvement in the factors of production in the homeland country. And another thing is that depending on an economy which is a foreign economy will definitely bring about a lot of problems, and their problem can actually lead to problem in our economic standard and our economic policies. So therefore, this House firmly believes that we should not depend on remittance. Thank you.
Respected judges, chief guests, and fellow participants, and respected audience. I'm William Gimre and I'm the first speaker from Team B, Chelsea International Academy. Second speaker is Vijay Sapkota and third speaker is Ridham Upreti. And our house strongly believes that remittance is not harmful for our national economy. First of all, I'd like to refute what my fellow opponent has said. Remittance is making our economic profit. Well, my friend, 25% of our national budget is dependent on remittance. What do you say about that? Remittance is not making our economic profit. Rather, it is giving us a stick. It is giving a stick to a baby who is crippling to walk. In that case, it is even making our economy more bolder. Now, the three major arguments our team has provided to support our motion. Firstly, economic implication. Secondly, social implication. Thirdly, remittance is not harmful policies. And I'll be speaking about economic implication. First of all, remittance solves the problem of financial stability. It stables BOP of the country. BOP, that is balance of payment. It increases the income of every people, indirectly increasing the economical power of the country, increasing the financial ability of the country, hence stabilizing the BOP. Our income is more and our expense is less. In that case, we become more stable country, our BOP becomes more stable. Hence, remittance is not harmful, it is useful to our country. Second point, solves the problem of capital deficit well. In a country like ours, there is a huge problem of capital deficit. Our country has a yearly budget of approximately 1400 billion rupees. And even if we are to project a 5% growth, we need 350 billion. And at this stage, our government is capable of only bringing out 120 billion rupees. What of the rest? 230 billion rupees. That money we can obtain that amount of money from remittance. Hence, remittance is very useful even if we are to get a desired amount of economic growth. In country like ours, in developing country like ours, where we need high development, where we need development of infrastructures, there is huge need of capital. And in that case, remittance is going to be a boon. Our yearly budget, let me repeat, 3513 million US dollar is yearly sent to Nepal as a capital. That is 25% of our national budget. And that indirectly or directly contributes to the overall development of the country. My fellow participant also stated that remittance is not stable. Well, my fellow opponent is proving a proofless, proving a loose and proving a fallacious argument. Well, according to Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, remittance is increasing yearly. It has never decreased, and even at this rate, remittance is proving a very good source of income for our country. And if the remittance decreases, our economy is going to be crippled. Our economy is going to collapse. In this case, Nepal is never going to be developed. Well, let me move to some example. NRN, non-residential Nepali, recently has decided to implement 500 million rupees project in Nepal that will mainly focus on energy generation, that will mainly focus on creating employment in our country. That is through remittance. If there was no remittance of 500 million, there would not be this opportunity that we will be getting. Next, Chilime hydropower project is funded by remittance. It is funded by NRN and that money is remittance. Remittance, saying in this condition, in this context, where remittance has proved very useful for us, where remittance is proving directly a great source of income for us, saying in this context that remittance is harmful for our country's economy is totally a foolish argument, is totally a fallacious argument, and is totally a proofless argument. Well, fellow judges, fellow audience, and my participants, let me remind you again that remittance is not harmful to our country. Remittance is never harmful to our country. Instead, it will help us in overall development of our country. Remittance will surely uplift our country's economy, not prove to be harmful for our country's economy. Now, I'd like to move on. I'll be continued by my second speaker. Thank you.
begin with refuting some of the points. As the opposition house said, 25% of our national economy depends on the remittance. That is why it has made our economy a puppet. That is exactly what we are trying to say. 25%, ladies and gentlemen, 1/4 of our economy depends on remittance. Remittance which is directly proportional to the economy of some other country. So we are depending on the economic situation of some other country. Doesn't that make our economy a puppet? Of course it does. Then again, 3 million people are working overseas. They're sending money in back home and we're getting enough remittance. But one person who's working abroad sustains 10 to 15 people back home, because of which people back home are not working. People in the villages, they've stopped working in agricultural lands. Our resources are being wasted. Our opponents said that when our expenses are less than our income, then our economy will grow. But I say there is no income. People are not working because they're totally depending on their fellow family members who are earning in some other foreign country. And let me remind you, they work as second citizens there. And the first people who will be affected if there is any economic crisis in those countries will be those second citizens. And we will be the first to suffer. The second will be the opposition house themselves are saying that if the remittance decreases, then our economy will be crippled. Remittance has not decreased yet, but can they guarantee that it will not? Is the world unlikely to face any other kind of economic crisis? Can any one single person come up and guarantee that no, we won't face an economic crisis, our remittance is not going to decrease? Certainly we can't. And then 5 million, the hydropower project that our opponent talked about, by NRNs, well, the NRNs are not funding the project. They're going to use their network all around the world to attract donors. It is not the NRNs are doing that, just to put the facts clear. Now I would like to move on to my point, which is how remittance makes the economy a puppet. Well, remittance comes from people who are working abroad. People who work abroad as second citizens, like I said, if they're hit by an economic crisis, then the first people who lose jobs will be second citizens. When they lose jobs, well, the remittance decreases, and if remittance decreases, 25% of our GDP decreases. 25% of our GDP decreases. Well, can we say that it is not harming our economy? Of course we can't. It is harming our economy, and it is not good. Dependency on remittance is not good, and remittance can suddenly collapse, like Israel. Israel recently decided that they will no longer accept Nepali workers. People who were working in Nepal became jobless. It increased unemployment rates in Nepal, and it dramatically decreased remittance. Now, if a global Nepal's economy, as long as it will depend on remittance, will be vulnerable to the effects of any kind of global shock. If there is any kind of economic or any other forms of unrest in other parts of the world where Nepalese workers are working, then our economy will be crippled because of something else that is happening in another country. Today, the world has been struck by an economic crisis. We are in a severe economic crisis, but two countries of the world that have been least affected by economic crisis, India and China. Well, India and China are two countries who highly depend on their domestic markets rather than their foreign investments. India and China promote their domestic markets. I don't say they are not involved in any kind of foreign investments or they do not depend on remittance, but the dependency is very, very less. And they are the countries which are least affected by such a severe economic crisis. This clearly shows that a strong economy comes not from dependency and remittance, but by promoting the domestic markets of our country. Well, now the question is, if not remittance, then what? Well, a lot of money is already spent on people going to foreign lands. Now, if we start cottage industries by that very money, then well, yes, it will be slow. Economic development will be slow. People will earn less. People will earn slow. But it is sustainable. Remittance is not sustainable. It is misleading. And currently, yes, it's providing 25% of our GDP, but we don't know about the future. It can collapse anytime. But cottage industries like Nuwakot, strawberry farming in Nuwakot, silkworm farming in Bandipur, hills around Kathmandu grow oranges. Dailik is perfect for growing lemons. Why not do that? We start from scratch, but we grow and we develop and we create a sustainable economy, and we do not depend on any foreign land for our economy. Thank you.
We know
economy of our country is declining. Here, let us say that it is not increasing. So, in this context, why has our per capita income increased from $270 to $470? The answer here is very simple. It is simply because of the inward flowing of the remittance. So how has the remittance made our economic puppet? That is simply a fallacious argument. And they said that, the second point, they said that, my fellow speaker said that our country is, while establishing a industry, we know that we need economy. We don't have that economy. Our government doesn't have that economy. So how can we make the industries work? How can we make that? We need the help of remittance here. So let me go back to my point. The argument I'm supporting is social impacts of remittances. How these the remittances help in social impacts? Poverty reduction, decline in inequality, jobs to those who do not have otherwise obtained, better education to children, better healthcare, education to children, better healthcare, improvement in housing condition, investment in real estate. These are only some of the benefits we are going to get from remittances. Only some of the advantages we are going to get from remittances. Let me provide statistics. Over 30% of the household income in Western region is accounted by remittances. In Sangza, Kaski and Tanau, it is 25.5%, 28.2%, and 34% respectively. See the number of the people enjoying their economy by the remittances flowing inwards. And the next fact I'm going to provide you that supporting my argument is that about 43.4% of household income in other countries came from remittances. It is 43.4%. It was again 7% in Jumla, which is facing a real high economic problems, economic status. Again, Chapa, Morang, Chitwan, Nawalparasi, Solukhumbu got remittances over NRS 10 billion rupees. See how our country is benefiting from the remittances flowing inwards. Let me provide a next evidences by Ministry of Finance. It is estimated that there are 2.02 million migrants outside, of which 8,670,000 percent are in India. 81,000 people are in Gulf. 2,400,000 people in Malaysia, and various thousands of people in other countries. If they are sending us remittances, we are going to get a lot of benefit from them. If this huge number of people are sending remittances to our country, our country's economy is going to be strong. Let me prove this with the fact that I got from Ministry of Finance. In 2003, in 2006, Nepal got remittances of $771 million. And it increased in 2006, which was $1,453 million. And again, it increased in 2009, that is $2,986 million. And in 2010, it was again increased, that is $3,513 million. See, the number is increasing, the number is helping our country to foster our economy. So how can the country not benefit from remittances? We are benefiting, our government is not strong enough to support our people. So why shall remittance not benefit our economy? That is simply a fallacious argument. So I would like to state that remittances are helping our social economy to be fostered and to be strong enough for country's development. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm the third speaker from the team of Ratha Bangla. And before starting, I'd like to rebut some of the points that my opponents have put up. The opponent team has already made it very clear how much our economy depends on remittance. The only thing I don't see is why it's a good thing. Yes, our economy depends on remittance, but what's happening back here? Right now, our government can produce goods and services worth about $135 billion. My opponents have said that. Yes, but if we depend on remittance, that number is going to stay constant, but the amount of money we're going to need is going to grow. In today's economy, everyone else is becoming more competitive. All the people going out here working for the development of other countries, those countries are going to get better while we are going to stagnate. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. Because unless development takes place here, and not only in the cities, in the villages, in every corner of Nepal, I don't see how the Nepalese economy is going to be able to compete with anyone in the future. Another point is that we, if we depend on remittance, are being short-sighted. Yes, we have problems here, yes, we have problems now. I agree with that. And yes, we have to address those problems. But then, what if we are only short-sighted? There were other countries that depended on remittance, not only Nepal. South Korea was once dependent on remittance. Lithuania was once dependent on remittance. So was Luxembourg, so was Monaco. Those countries reduced the amount of remittance they were getting in favor of conducting development activities, in favor of increasing the employment rates back home, in favor of giving their people employment in their own country and increasing their productive base. That is what Nepal has to do now. Right now, we don't need our labor going outside. Those people that are going outside, yes, they're working there, but the resources back here, the untapped potential of Nepal, that is being wasted. And that is something we have to think about. As my teammate has already said, in Nepal, when one person goes out, there's usually a family of about 5-10 people who is sustaining. Those people don't have an incentive to work anymore. They're getting money, they are not going to toil, they're not going to just waste their sweat because they already have their basic needs fulfilled. The resources back here are being wasted. The thing is, when one Nepali person goes out, he's not working for his country, we have lost valuable human resource. We don't have skilled manpower. And we don't, now after the emigration rates have begun rising, we don't have unskilled manpower either. We don't have anyone in this country to work. And statistics show that the immigration out of Nepal has only been rising. That is also one of the reasons why remittance has been rising. But if you look at the remittance coming in per worker going abroad, after the economic crisis, it has gone down. What happens when countries like Israel and Singapore just ban Nepali workers? That has happened in both of these countries. Remittance has gone down from these countries. What happens if it continues to other countries' data? Remittance creates a sort of misconception that our economy is going well. Yes, it is going well right now. There is no development taking place though. We cannot just depend on the money that's coming from abroad. I'd now like to summarize the points that the House has already presented. First of all, resources are being wasted. As I've already stated, the people back here have no incentive to work. That is a major problem. Second of all, my teammate stated how the economy becomes a puppet, how it is highly dependent on the money from other countries, how it is highly dependent on the economic situation from other countries. There is always a time lag between policy formation and policy implementation. Our central bank, our government now is struggling to calculate the amounts that comes from abroad, not only as remittance, but also as transfer earnings. And that forms a valuable portion of our GDP. So we don't know which route to take. It is making it more difficult for us to formulate economic policies. Thirdly, our economy, if it depends on remittance, is going to stagnate. And we don't want that happening. Our competitiveness will only go down as more people funnel out of Nepal to work abroad. Saying this, I'd like to end my lecture. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm the third speaker from Chelsea International Academy Team B, and I'm here to speak against the motion. First of all, I would like to start rebuttaling my opponent's points. My fellow opponents argued about remittance being an inflation or the factor which causes deficits, but that is a complete absurd argument. How can the money which is literally making its way to our country be harmful for the country's economy? I would like to firmly state that my proposition team has already clarified and presented the fact 25%, I repeat, 25% of our national budget comprises of remittance. That is 1/4 of the total budget. My opponent friend also seems to be tangled with the understanding between the remittance and policy. Our country is not a developing one. How can you expect a country to start flourishing on its own without any economical support? Ladies and gentlemen, remittance is the support. My opponent friend also gave examples of Luxembourg and South Korea. Yes, they were the countries who introduced remittance first. That's why they were developed, and that is where our country Nepal, ladies and gentlemen, our country Nepal will be leading and is heading today. Now I would like to move on to my argument, which I will be presenting today, that is remittance is not harmful, policy is. I repeat, remittance is not harmful, policy is. When the government directs the remittance in proper sector, like building up resources and establishing hydroelectricity projects and encouraging the natural resources of our country, that is definitely going to aid the present consequences of our country. The support the remittance will be giving will be definitely a boon for the present consequences that we all are familiar in our country today. We all know that about 1/3 of the working male population is estimated to be outside the country working for the benefit of Nepal, remitting money back home and making remittances the largest foreign currency earner. Now I would like to summarize the points that my proposition team had already clarified. First of all, remittance solves the problem of financial stability. Secondly, social implication of remittance. And thirdly, remittance is not harmful, policy is. So this house firmly believes that being dependent in remittance is not harmful for the national economy, as remittance has already proved a boon for improving the consequences that is resulted in our country today. Remittance is the fact. It is like a support which boosts up the budget of our country, as I have previously said that 25% of the national budget comprises of remittance. So I would like to conclude my speech restating that this house believes being dependent in remittance is not harmful for the national economy of a country. Thank you.
Speaker 1 of Chelsea Team B, and I'm here to give reply speech for our team. Well, our team has already provided enough evidence, enough fact, and enough argument forced by facts and figures to prove our point that remittance is never harmful for our country. Well, what my fellow opponents did was provide a fallacious argument, provide a loose argument without any supportive fact. They are showing idea like they fear that we should not walk just in case we fall. It never means, what they are trying to say is that we should not take remittance in the case that there may come a global crisis. Well, I don't think we should work on hypothesis. There may be anything right now, there may be earthquake right now, so we should never believe on if, we should believe on fact, and we have provided enough fact to support our evidence. We have provided enough arguments. We clearly have an upper hand in this debate, and we clearly should win this debate. My fellow participants, my fellow team members have already clarified the points: economic implication, social implication, and remittation is not harmful policy. Harmful policy is. We have already clarified our point. We have already supported our point, and in many cases, even our opponent have supported our point by saying that countries like South Korea have been developed just because they imported remittance. That is why even our opponents are supporting us. We clearly have an upper hand. We clearly have won this debate, and we clearly have seen that this debate is in our side. Thank you.
I would like to begin by saying that we do not say let's not walk by the fear of falling down. We say walk a path that will take us to a destination that we would like to reach to, a place where we would like to live, a place that will give us a long-term solution, which is definitely not remittance. 25% of our income depends on remittance, And our only surviving economy is barely sustained by this economy, and it will be pretty ridiculous if we all become happy seeing that our economy is being sustained by this remittance. Shouldn't we be thinking of expanding, developing, and making our economy strong? Of course we should, and we cannot do that unless as long as we depend on remittance. Our opponents say it is not a problem that we depend on remittance. So they're saying it is not a problem that we depend on some other country's economy, which might collapse anytime, causing our economy to collapse. They say that remittance can be used to develop a country, but I say when 1/3 of our male population is working overseas, who will develop the country with that particular remittance that has come in? We are at a labor shortage, and as long as we depend on remittance, more and more people will go out, and we won't have anyone to develop our own country. And at this point, we cannot afford to do that. We depend on remittance, but till when can we do that? It is not a sustainable solution. We need to look for a solution that can be called long-term, that can help our economy develop. And as long as we will develop on remittance, this will never ever happen. It is a cycle that will go on and on. Thus, the House believes that remittance, the dependency on remittance is not good, and because we have provided us with enough arguments which clearly show that remittance is not something that we should depend on, we should definitely win. Thank you.